Well, hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us on the season premiere of Racing Tonight. I'm Mark Edwards. Lots of changes since the end of the 2003 season, including the new chase for the championship and Nextel taking over NASCAR's Cup Series as title sponsor. A couple of things that haven't changed: great racing in the Daytona 500, and my RT partners, once again joined by Jason White and Heather Williams. Strap in, guys, because we've got about 40 weeks of this coming up.
I'm ready.
You're ready.
All right, let's go. Hope my seat's fitted to me correctly.
Let's talk about the Daytona 500, because a lot of folks might have thought it was a little bit of a boring race, but you know, we had the big one, had a 12-car wreck on lap 71. But give me your thoughts on just the race in general. The changes, good, bad. Did you see the differences on the track?
Yeah. Step in the right direction. I saw in the Twins steps in the right direction. The changes they made were better to increase competition. I was really disappointed to see the big one. I mean, I don't know. I know it's a big draw for crowds, but that doesn't need to keep happening. That is not a good situation for them to keep having on the track. They're going. I was happy. I was happy with how the race went.
And you know what, Heather, a lot of folks are making a big deal of this Roush-Yates co-partnership as far as building engines. What happened to these guys? Biffle blows an engine Saturday in practice, has to go from the pole to the back of the field, and we had Jeff Burton's engine went poof, and so did Mark Martin's.
Yeah, but the two Yates engines held up.
They were fun. You wonder if you know, maybe Yates is going over to Roush and putting like chlorine in the gas tank.
Yeah, it was really interesting because the Roush engines that were having all the trouble last year are still having trouble this year. So I don't know, but it's funny. Two things were funny. First of all, the Yates engines held up, and Matt Kenseth never seems to draw the short stick when it comes to bad engines. It always seems to be Mark Martin and Jeff Burton. They're always the two that get stuck with the.
Well, when they come out of the build department and they take them off the dyno, there might be a little priority. You know, we've got 8 engines, and here's the best 4. You know, I doubt it. It really doesn't work that way.
And then we also saw Kurt Busch's car smoke, but that was just his, you know, fender rub on the right tire. So, but I'm sure Kurt Busch, when he was told on his radio, "I see smoke," he's like, "Oh, here we go again."
And it came back to bite Dale Jr. That little incident, although he ended up winning the race, he was not getting any help from his friend Kurt Busch.
Nope.
But what a fun race! And speaking of Dale Jr., it seems so obvious. DEI wrote the book on restrictor plate racing, and yet all of us overlooking little E when we made our picks for the Daytona 500. Maybe it was the failures of his father. Dale Sr. needed 20 tries to make it to victory lane at the 500, and this was just try number 6 for Junior. Speaking of following in Daddy's footsteps, Mr. President, will you do the honors?
Now it is my honor to start this race. Gentlemen, start your engines.
W getting things started and then getting an early jump on the post-race traffic, leading about halfway through the race. Mark Martin didn't make it that long. 7 laps in, and the fancy new Yates Roush engine lets go. And I mean, it lets go. All kinds of smoke. Martin finishes last. Teammate Jeff Burton also lost an engine on Sunday. 3-wide racing coming off turn 3, and Rusty Walsh becomes a Jamie McMurray Jeff Green sandwich. McMurray drives off, but Rusty and Green done for the day. Ken Schrader also caught up in this mess. Next time around, McMurray would not be so lucky. Lap 71, and here comes the big one. Johnny Sauter gets loose, runs into fellow rookie Brian Vickers, and here we go. Defending 500 champ Michael Waltrip in the cloud of smoke tumbles 3 times on the air and ends up on his roof. It would take them 10 minutes to get him out of the car, and Mikey wasn't happy. But Michael would walk away. Marlon, Newman, LePage, Benson, Riggs, Andretti, Robbie Gordon, and Terry Labonte all caught up in the wreck. Tony Stewart leading the most laps on Sunday, but 10 of the last 15 drivers to do so at the 500 have failed to win. Make that 11 of 16 with 19 to go. Junior passes on the inside of smoke, and then Dale Earnhardt Jr. starting first thanks to an engine change by Greg Biffle and finishing first at the 46th Daytona 500. Here's a look at the top 10. Junior and Stewart 1-2. Rookie Scott Wimmer is third. Kevin Harvick and Jimmy Johnson rounds out the group that has 4 Chevys. Another Chevy leads off the second 5 in Joe Nemechek. Elliott Sadler leads a trifecta of 4s to finish in the top 10. Another Chevy, Jeff Gordon, squeezing in between 2003-point champ Matt Kenseth and Dale Jarrett. For Junior, he wins the 500 6 years to the day after his daddy finally did.
All right, we're back on Racing Tonight. Mark Edwards alongside Jason White and Heather Williams, the regular season premiere of the show, as we have 40 more to go. And it's an exciting time for NASCAR because lots of changes. You know, the way they're going to decide a points champion, they have softer tires, new fuel, da-da-da-da-da-da. But, you know, one thing that probably isn't changing fast enough for minority drivers, Jason, is the whole diversity issue. Because if you look down the list of between all 3 series, the, you know, Cup, Busch, and trucks, just aren't a lot of minorities yet.
And what a fascinating question for these guys to go say, how can we get people of different ethnicities to drive race cars. You know, is it because they don't want to, or is it because it's hard to get into the sport? I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's fantastic that they're going to go out and say, if you want to drive a race car, it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are. You can drive a race car, and we want you to be a part of what we're doing now.
Well,
That's
you know,
awesome.
a lot of what it takes to get into racing is money. Money talks.
Right.
And to be real honest, a lot of minority investors are putting their money elsewhere. There are a lot of minority drivers, perhaps, that want to get involved, but you know, a lot of minority investors are putting their money where more minorities are apt to spend money, specifically the NBA and the NFL. That's where a lot of the money from minority businesses are going. So it's harder for minority drivers to get involved in the sport.
I know last year you had Bill Lester driving in the Truck Series, and then Contreras from Mexico, who was also driving in the Truck Series. But lo and behold, Lester's the only one left. So we don't know what happened to Contreras, whether he dropped down or he's just out of it. But they had a hard time. I know he wanted to move up into Busch, as we were talking about earlier, but you know, Contreras could not find a sponsor to move up into Busch, and I think that's inherently the problem with not only minority drivers, but drivers in general. The money is really tight right now, and trying to start a new team, you know, with maybe a minority driver that's not proven is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I had a chance to talk to some people about it, and I know you did too. I've talked to Bill Lester several times about it, and you talked to Reggie White. So we talked to all these people and found out what NASCAR is actually doing to help minorities come into the sport. NASCAR is a speed.
The name of Reggie White will help that team, but it's not necessarily the end-all be-all because, as we mentioned, you know, money's tight, and you know, maybe someone like Reggie White and Joe Gibbs, if they want to move up, they go after maybe a minority-owned business, but you know, there's no guarantee. This fascinates me. You know, they're doing the right thing, but the questions have to be coming up. You know, are minorities really interested in the racing? I mean, you know, do they want to drive? Do they want to watch the sport? I mean, you know, I don't really know. I hate for it to be a race issue, but there's so many questions to answer. It sounds like they're assuming so much about what's going on here, but the fact that somebody wants to go out and say, hey, you know what, we'll take you to a place where you can succeed instead of just throwing you in a car on Winston Cup. No, none of us could do that. Right.
And letting people farm up, and if they make it, they make it. If not, you know, good for them or bad for them.
Well,
whatever.
you know, I think a lot of it has to do with the success of Bill Lester. I think he is the key because he is kind of the Tiger Woods or the Williams sisters of racing. I think when young people actually see him and experience him and have a role model, because there's not a lot of role models for African Americans or Hispanics in racing, but if they see him and he succeeds, I think that it is going to grow and there are going to be more drivers.
Sure. That, like Brian said, it's going to take some time.
All right, all good points, guys. We'll roll out more of Racing Tonight coming up, including our picks and a preview to Sunday's Subway 400 at Rockingham. And when we come back, we'll debut our new RT segment called Turn 5. And in the spotlight this week, the 2003 Rookie of the Year, Jamie McMurray. That and more for you when we come back. All right, thanks for hanging with us on Racing Tonight. Mark Edwards, Jason White, and Heather Williams. If you look at Ganassi Racing, guys, it's almost like the old man and the two kids. You have Sterling Marlin, who's been around forever, and then you have Casey Mears and Jamie McMurray. Let's talk specifically about Jamie McMurray, the 2003 Rookie of the Year, guys. Everybody you speak to in NASCAR says this kid has a very bright future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, he fits the mold. Like Heather and I joke about all the time. He's a good-looking guy, which you know, it's all about the money. Let's not fool ourselves about it. It's not just about going around in circles. It's about the money. He's a fine driver. He looks the part. He's with a great team. I mean, holy cow! It's the modern-day mold for a driver.
Well, you can't beat the fact that right out of the box, subbing for Sterling in his second race, he comes out and wins. I mean, that definitely helps the cause a little bit there.
Yeah, that's definitely a seal of approval on it.
And it helps, too, for a young driver to be involved in a team that has, I don't want to say unlimited deep pockets, but, you know, we can say unlimited deep pockets because Ganassi, that whole team, whether it's in, you know, this series or another series, he has unlimited funds, it would appear.
You know, the guy with the deepest pockets goes a long way in racing, particularly.
All right, you know, this week we start a new segment called Turn 5, and we're going to put Jamie McMurray in our Turn 5 spotlight.
This week in North Carolina, NASCAR tries to take a piece of the rock before it takes a piece of them. Known to be tough on tires anyway, this season the new softer tires hold on for a ride. The track opened in Rockingham in 1965 with Curtis Turner taking the first checkered flag. Last season it was Dale Jarrett winning his one and only race of the season. Some other track facts: the track's a little over a mile long and it features 22-degree bankings in the turns. As for my pick, I'm going with Elliott Sadler. Jason?
And how about defending champion, you know what I'm talking about, Matt Kenseth?
And I'm going to go with a guy who's won there a bunch, Jeff Gordon. That's going to do it for this week's show. For Heather Williams, Jason White, and the entire crew, I'm Mark Edwards. Until next time, so long, everybody.